Question: what's the greatest individual season you've ever seen from an NFL player? Maybe it was a 23-year-old Dan Marino who threw for an NFL record 48 touchdowns in 1984. Or maybe it was Peyton Manning who broke that very same record in 2004 and then again in 2013. Maybe it was Tom Brady's infamous 2007 season in which he led the New England Patriots to an undefeated 16-0 record. Jerry Rice racked up 1,800 receiving yards in 1995. That's sure to be up there. The same can be said for Eric Dickerson's season in 1984, in which he rushed for 2,104 yards, a record that still stands to this very day. He's also cost me about $400 in replacement PlayStation controllers. Maybe it was Patrick Mahomes in 2018 when he won an MVP in his first season as a starter. Or maybe it was Aaron Rodgers in 2011 when he was officially the baddest man on the planet. At the end of the day though, everyone has their own opinions based on what area you grew up in, where you grew up, and who you liked watching. But what do the numbers say? If we put our personal bias aside for a second and dive purely into a vast realm of statistics and data collected over countless decades, allowing for offensive inflation, rule changes, and everything in between. If we could somehow come up with our own unique formula and apply this to each and every season dating back to the 1970s, which NFL player has had the greatest individual season of all time? Alright, you might be thinking, well, this sounds all well and good, but how on earth are we actually going to find out who had the greatest individual season in NFL history? Wouldn't it just be far too hard to compare players across eras and positions? Well, no, because after crunching numbers for literally weeks on end, I've come up with a unique 5-step criteria, which consists of some simple and some advanced NFL statistics, as well as the inclusion of individual awards and honors. Within this 5-step criteria, we will use a points system, allowing us to combine a player's single season data into one number. And from there, we can begin comparing seasons. Now, before we get into the data itself, I'd like to get two things out of the way. Firstly, so as to not make this video more complicated than it needs to be. Today, we will solely be focusing on offensive players. And secondly, many of the awards and advanced metrics we will be using in this experiment came about in the 70s and 80s. So once again, to simplify matters, we will only be looking at seasons from the year 1978 onwards. But don't worry about that, because this is where the fun begins. Our first criterion is single season receiving, passing, and rushing yard leaders. Any player who ranked first in their respective category in a given season will receive 5 points. Second will receive 4, and so on. For example, in the year 2023, the top 5 leaders in receiving yards per game were Tyreek Hill, who would receive 5 points, Justin Jefferson, who would receive 4 points, and CeeDee Lamb, who would receive 3 points. Now, the reason I chose to include yards per game leaders was not only to keep the playing field level between different positions, but it also means that we can compare players across eras. Because the amount of yards a quarterback throws for in today's NFL is far greater than what it used to be. So comparing Patrick Mahomes and Joe Montana simply off of total yards thrown is just completely unfair. Our second piece of criteria is the Offensive Player of the Year award. Now, I've chosen this award instead of the MVP because it has a far greater track record of recognizing positional talent, while the MVP award, with a few exceptions, is almost always given to a quarterback. Our third metric is approximate value. AV, or approximate value, is an advanced metric pioneered by Doug Drinnen. It attempts to put a single number on the seasonal value of a player at any position. For approximate value, we will be using a player's entire score. Our fourth point of call is First Team All-Pro. This one is rather self-explanatory. Any player who makes First Team All-Pro is awarded 5 points, and any player who makes Second Team All-Pro is awarded 3 points. And our final parameter may be a bit controversial, but any player who is a part of a Super Bowl winning team is awarded 3 points, and a bonus 5 points will be given to the Super Bowl MVP. Now yes, we are talking about individual seasons here, but we are also talking about the greatest individual season. And I think many of us associate greatness with winning, so I had to include at least one metric of team success. Anyway, I know I've yapped on a bit there, so let's get to it. Here are the 57th to 44th greatest seasons of all time. Yes, weird place to start, I know, but these are all the players who received a season score of 30, which is going to be our baseline. From here, we will work our way up to an individual who stands alone with a season score of Players with a season score of 31 include Roger Craig, Steve Young, Ed James, Drew Brees, and Derrick Henry's unstoppable 2020 season. the year he was literally plowing through everyone with no regard for human life. So too Christian McCaffrey, whose 2023 season earned him a season score of 32, alongside the likes of 2021 Tom Brady, 2019 Michael Thomas, and 1995 Brett Favre. As we ascend again, you'll notice a third Drew Brees appearance, the most of any player so far. Not surprisingly, Matt Ryan makes his first and only appearance, and so does Todd Gurley for his outstanding 2017 season. Peyton Manning makes his debut with a season score of 34. Jerry Rice equals Drew Brees with 3 appearances, and so too Emmitt Smith with his 1992 campaign. But not for long, as Jerry puts yet another season on the board in 1993. And with only 3 players achieving a season score of 35, we are starting to narrow in on our greatest season. Dan Marino, Patrick Mahomes, and Dan Fouts all make their first appearance with a season score of 36. It really is quite remarkable to think that this was Patrick Mahomes' first season as a starter, and yet it doesn't even come close to the story of Kurt Warner. In 1997, this guy was bagging groceries at a supermarket in Iowa. In 1999, in his first season as a starter, Kurt Warner had one of the greatest individual seasons in NFL history. Patrick Mahomes makes his second appearance with a season score of 37 in 2022, alongside Marshall Faulk and LaDainian Tomlinson, who by the way holds the all-time record for approximate value in a single season, with an AV of 26. And so we arrive at the top, the select few with a season score of 38. Emmitt Smith, Terrell Davis, Marshall Faulk, and a surprising Cooper Kupp appearance. Although, when you think about his 2021 season, it really isn't that surprising. Most notably, however, is Tom Brady's 2007 campaign, where he led the New England Patriots to an undefeated 16-0 regular season. He won the MVP, the Offensive Player of the Year award, and he had an approximate value rating of 23, which ranks equal third all time. He became the first player ever to throw for 50 touchdowns in a single season, and his 4,806 passing yards was the third highest total of all time. With 2 minutes remaining in Super Bowl 42, it wasn't even close. Tom Brady was on track to have the single greatest season in NFL history. And then it happened.
3rd down and 5.
One Mississippi. New York Giants quarterback Eli Manning drops back in the pocket. 1 minute and 15 seconds remain in Super Bowl 42. 2 Mississippi. Manning gets ready to throw. It's 3rd and 5. The New York Giants have one last roll of the dice to take down the undefeated New England Patriots. 3 Mississippi. Defensive ends Jarvis Green and Richard Seymour close the pocket on Eli Manning. They wrap him up and it's all but over. The single greatest season in NFL history belongs to Tom Brady.
Pressure from Thomas off the edge. Eli Manning stays on his feet. Airs it out down the field. It is caught by Tyree. Oh my God. And Eli, man, I don't know how he got out of there. I thought he was on the ground and then he came out of the pile and just slings it.
The helmet catch. The only blemish on one of the greatest individual seasons ever. Under the most improbable circumstances, the undefeated Patriots would fall to Peyton Manning's little brother in Super Bowl 42. And it is for that reason that Joe Montana's 1989 season still stands alone with a season score of 40 as the greatest individual season of all time.